wasn't truly from the online contribution. So, Jenny, have you got a...
Okay, possibly to start with Imogen and Oscar again. If the age were lowered to 16, what support do you think would be needed, possibly in relation to some of the more vulnerable areas? What do you think, what extra support do you think would need to be put in place?
I think a lot of the stuff that we spoke about before was about education in school before. So this could be through like citizenship lessons and just having more conversations about rights and responsibilities and different protections and in example for vulnerable groups, institutions that can help them. So I think, our main argument back to that would be about education and making sure that children are well informed at a younger age. And so if it was to be lowered to 16, by 16 they would be fully aware of the different rights and responsibilities.
Good answer. Anyone else? No? No, that's floored them.
There's actually quite a lot on the chat about the issue of education and the importance of getting that piece of the jigsaw right, and it sort of sounds as if it really needs to be the precursor in order to be able to enjoy the benefits rather than running the risks.
Yeah.
That was just a comment, not a question.
Right. Back to the room. Anyone? Yeah. Yes. Lord Justice Baker.
One halfway house might be to lower the voting age to 16. That would enable young people of 16 and 17 to have a say in how laws should be changed. After all, it could be said that we don't do a great job in protecting them at the moment, and it may well be that if we gave them a voice, political voice, to say how laws should be changed, rules should be changed, we might get a better and fairer system. Would that be a solution which might attract everybody, or not? I see Deirdre's nodding to that.
Yes, that sounds like a good solution.
So you'd still win the debate, but it would be...
That's why it's a good solution.
In favour of your... Ruth.
Well, practising in Wales where they do have the vote, it's part of the solution. But it isn't the complete solution, because you then have an enfranchised 16-year-old who has the ability to live a life of an adult and is still treated by the courts as a child. And the other point is that when you start to look at it and you've given them the vote, we talk about child's rights and the vulnerable because, of course, they must be the focus of our attention. But in proposing the motion and doing the researches, what you're actually looking at is an awful lot of old law about contract and civil responsibilities, and actually not about children's rights at all. And if you're going to be serious about children's rights, then you've got to be serious about autonomy. And autonomy isn't just giving them the vote in local elections. It's about hearing them, listening to them, and then acting on it. And that means reducing the age of majority.
I've just thought that we haven't had a discussion about whether Oscar gets a vote in the debate. I'm sure he does. Anyone? Jenny, from online.
There's no more additional, there's comments, but not so many questions left online.
Right,
I have a small question. Can I ask a question? I'm just wondering why 16. I'm just wondering why we've got 16 as the option as opposed to 18, and what people think about whether or not, why have we arbitrarily picked 16 then?
Well, part of the reason the Welsh chose 16 for the voting age was the old saying from my O-level history, because I'm that old, no taxation without representation. You tax a 16-year-old, so why shouldn't they have representation? And then you look at the ages, and actually you have the 1969 Act giving you the age of majority of 18, and then you've chipped away at it and chipped away at it and chipped away at it. So again, going back to O-levels, this time O-level maths, there used to be something called the mean, medium and the mode. the forms of average. I can see people nodding in the room that remember that. If you look at what the age that falls in the middle of the continuum, it's 16. And that's why 16.
Why 16? And of course, you two didn't choose 16, did you? So it's also, politics is the art of the possible, so 16 is a good starting point anyway. Jenny, do you want to read out some comments, and then please anyone in the room do contribute. Yeah.
There's a question here about does anybody know the statistics for young people living independently at 16 and 17? I wasn't sure if any of the panel actually knew the answer to what level of young people there are living independently at that age.
No. Lucy, have you got a question? You've got to wait for the microphone because the people online can't hear you. There we are.
I was just going to ask Oscar and Imogen if they advocate the age of majority to be reduced to 16 when they think of their friends, and whether they think actually it would be a good thing for all of their friends, or whether it would just be for people as mature as they are.
I think it should be for everybody of an age. I think when you're 16 and you've completed all your years of mandatory school, regardless of competence, you should still be allowed to have a say and to have consent to basic things.
And is there, can I have a supplementary? Is there, sorry, is there anything that you think shouldn't be at 16, that you think perhaps should stay at 18, or do you think it should be absolutely everything?
I think it should be a plain slate. I think everything should be at 16.
And is that because you think it's clearer?
It's clearer and it's more concise and it's simpler.
Imogen, same for you?
Yeah, I would say the same things as well. I think it's a lot about when you finish schooling, compulsory schooling, to keep the age at 16. Yeah.
Anyone else want to come in? No? No. That was 3 questions. Anyone else in the room? Yes, the gentleman at the front. Thank you.
Fundamentally, do we believe that children are now, at the age of 16, are more informed than in previous generations? Or the counter-argument that they're still not more informed?
Have the goalposts moved?
Well, they're certainly better informed than I was at 16, but that may be because I was born before the age of the internet.
I think a lot of it as well is about what children are exposed to, and young people are exposed to now in a more modern world with the internet and with news, how easy it is to be just informed on what's going on in the world, and the use of technology. So yes.
I feel too old really to answer that question. I don't know. Feel comfortable saying whether children are better informed. I suppose one of the things to bear in mind is the deluge of information that is available to people doesn't necessarily mean that they're better informed. I don't know that any of us are better informed. But I'm not sure also that I think that that's a factor that needs to be taken into account. I suppose one of the things about information is it assists people to claim their autonomy, and there's an extent to which it empowers young people to claim their autonomy. But when you start to look, and this obviously is a thread that runs through our discussion, but when you start to look at some of the more complex areas like reproductive health and children's sexual identity and adolescent sexual identity and sexuality, some of those issues are made more complicated by the way in which information is received and access to information and availability of information via digital means. So I think it's quite a complicated thing to understand and evaluate. But I'm too old and far away from young people to really be able to answer that properly, so I defer to the younger members of the panel.
Anyone else? No. Anyone in the room? Barbara.
Barbara Connolly. Just following on from that, from the last question. If the question that's been asked is, are 16-year-olds better informed than they were in the past, one might reverse that. If the rationale behind having an age of majority is the state's duty to protect children, are we really saying that 16-year-olds are in less need of that 18-year-olds or 16-year-olds are in less need of protection than they were before?
I'll start and then I shall defer to my young colleagues. But I don't think, first of all, that the age of majority is necessarily set by the need to protect. When you look at it, it's actually about the protecting of society from them. And that's historically where it's come from. And you look astonished, but that's civil. It's about the ability to void contracts.
That might also be to protect the child from being from having a contract enforced against them.
It could be, but it's not simply about protection. It's about empowerment from our perspective. And that's the reason why we propose the motion, because actually a paternalistic society is a historical society, and we should now be living in a society of rights. And if we really do respect rights, we should be respecting the autonomy of those that are able to express their rights.
Deirdre, Shabina, Imogen, Oscar?
I think there's some interesting discussions about adolescent autonomy at international level. And about 3 or 4 years ago, the UN committee issued its first general comment on adolescent autonomy. And one of the things I think it confronted in the general comment was the observations that Ruth had made, this idea of focusing on the deviance of adolescence, or the dangerousness of adolescence. And the general comment really shifted the committee's attention to the importance of participatory rights. But I don't think you can say that the claiming of participatory rights or the claiming of autonomy can be entirely devoid of any consideration of protection. Because insofar as autonomy for anyone brings with it responsibility, it also exposes individuals to risk. And that's why you have a spectrum. And that's why you have the concept of evolving capacities, that you don't expect a person to bear a burden, whatever that might be, a civil burden or a political burden or an economic or social burden, at a point when they don't have the capacity to do that. And I don't mean capacity as in mental capacity. I mean capacity in the broadest sense. And that's my understanding of where the committee landed in its general comment. So I think there's a real recognition of how unattractive it is to characterise adolescence as deviant or dangerous or threatening or whatever it is. And I think that's Ruth's point. I think the debate is much more sophisticated. But those two competing tensions, I don't think you can ignore them. It's too reductive to simply say autonomy is there and we should be able to claim it.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Anyone else online? Any comments? Happening. We've been realising we haven't actually organised how to vote online. And so a number of us have been shuffling around the room inconspicuously. I think we can have a form that can be put online by the Amplitude team. And will it be for, against and abstain? Yes. And how long will it take you to get that? We can launch that whenever you're ready. So have we, Jenny, got one more?
Just one more question. I think this is quite a useful one to end on. Moving from a child to an adult involves a huge transition and a development of maturity. Isn't it helpful to have a period of time where a young person has some, but not the entire gambit of responsibilities, so a sort of halfway house?
Right. A launch pad. Is it a useful thing to have? You can almost predict what the answers are going to be. Oscar.
I don't think it's useful. It would, if anything, it would feel more like you're trapped, as in you can do some things, but you can't with others. So it wouldn't be helpful, really. It'd just be it wouldn't feel like a starting ground. If anything, it'd feel like you're in quicksand. You know, you're trying to get out, but you can't for another 2 years. It's just impractical.
No?
To that response, it's not a response per se, but the only thing I would actually say in response to that question is just to kind of draw an example from a jurisdiction where they almost do have this system. So in the US, where actually you can become emancipated as a teenager, and this is kind of played out in different ways, and essentially you become an adult as soon as you are emancipated, so your parents have no rights and you can access rights as an adult, so to speak. And what that has actually resulted in is a lot of teenagers overnight have become homeless, and the state has no responsibility towards them. And what it has created is another category of extremely vulnerable young adolescents that actually need support, but they're considered adults in the system, but haven't actually been given a fair chance to be so. And I say this, it's that concept of actually that reprieve period. So actually, while children in the US are very much respected, so our young people are respected at that stage to be quite empowered. And in the US, some of the conversations that they have about identity and autonomy and independence, I feel like are far more advanced in the UK. But in reality, they have also highlighted some of the risks, and it is actually, have they protected these young people or just launched them into unfortunate situations like homelessness, which is a huge issue.
All right, that brings things to a close. I haven't fully resolved the question, what am I going to do when I grow up? So it is a moving moving thing, doesn't never quite ends. So looking at the Amplitude team, presumably it will happen real time. If I ask the questions in the room, then people can fill in their forms. We'll obviously do the show of hands in series, but people watching can presumably fill in their forms at any time now. And how long will you need to give them? There's no reason why we shouldn't give them a very short time to do it. So the questions are on the form. Does it say yes or for or no and against?
So they have, I am in favour, I am not in favour, and abstain.
That's great. Okay. So the motion is, should the age of majority be reduced to 16? I am in favour, vote for that. I am against, vote for that. I abstain, vote for that. And we'll do that in the room now. We've got tellers dotted around. I can tell you there's only about 15 of us in the room. And the panellists are allowed to vote as well, including Oscar. So should the age of majority be reduced to 16? In favour? Kim, are you counting? Or Jenny's counting? That's fine. And anyone? Jenny, are you in favour? Yeah, good. Thank you. Put your hands down. Should the age of majority be reduced to 16? Against? Abstain. Just purely. That laugh, it's because, I'm on camera. I'll have my hand up. There we are. Good. So, can we add the in-room totals to the online ones? But if there's a difference between online and in the room, it'd be quite interesting to see. Quite exciting. The only time I come to this building is to vote. There's a polling booth, and I don't live far away, and it's really exciting. I come early in the morning because it's on the way to work, and because it's in Westminster, there's always a little bevy of cameramen and women outside. So I dawdled for a long, long time, but they didn't show any interest in me at all. Yeah. Yes. Right, here we are. God. Right. So 5 people abstained. In favour of the motion, so that the age should be reduced, 23. Against the motion, that it should not be reduced, therefore, 43. So it's more clear than I would have thought. And there we are. Well, I thought, whatever the outcome of the vote, I thought it was a really interesting debate because of the quality of the detail, the work that you'd all put in to researching the points and the history and the little teasing out of the issues betrayed the not only the work you've put in, but your experience, but the experience of Oscar and Imogen, who come actually knowing what this is all about in a way that we don't or have forgotten, was extremely valuable and added very much to the overall quality. So can I thank everybody to applaud them now, whether you're at home or in your office, online or here. I just need to thank Kim and Daphne from the Family Justice Council. These events just don't happen, and to organise this in the middle of the moving field of the restrictions has been very tricky. They found, I think, a really good venue here. I think those of you who aren't in the room, this is a good place to come, and I'm really, really grateful to Kim and Daphne for what they've done. So thank you. And my phone tells me that the Prime Minister has announced that people should now be working from home from I don't know what day coming soon. So well done for picking the last date you could pick as it happened. Has it? You can still go out? Oh, well, there we are. The night is young. So safe home to everyone and happy Christmas. Thank you.